let people in.
Yes, it's recording.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't see that you live, that the live came up yet. Yeah, there's something funny going on the internet, so I may just post it after the fact. That's okay. So let me share my screen.
Okay.
And we've got 6 people in. And there's Scott Berg. And you know, before I start this slideshow, I think what I'm going to do is, we've got 6 people out there. That's nice to see. And Scott. This is Joan Conover, and Beth is our host for this event. So I'll turn it over to her, and then I'm going to give a short emergency communications off and near shore, very simple. And Scott's really the expert on this, so I'm letting him, you know, this is kind of like the stuff in the background. This is not the high detail of how you do it or even going into the nitty gritty, but it does give you an idea of what has to be done. And Beth, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, I can't see anybody else on the screen or on the call. Can you see me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good, very good. So I'm Beth Vandegeijn. I'm the Annapolis Cruisers Lunch host. We meet the second Saturday of every month, and from noon to 1. We used to meet live down at one of the cafes in Eastport, but obviously during the pandemic, we're just doing Zoom. So we've been trying to do a monthly series of talks, just if local people want to just chime in and get some overview, just to kind of keep the momentum rolling through these dull winter months when we all, you know, are just hanging around waiting for the weather to get nicer, so we can start working on our boats. And then just a plug for anybody who's on the call that I can't see or listening in, we are in the process of planning for our fall Annapolis, they call it the Gm, which again is going to be at the Maryland Yacht Club in the last weekend in September. And I'm always looking for help. And if you are interested, please contact me directly through 7 Cs, or you can reach me after the webinar or through Scott or Joan. So the more hands makes our load a lot lighter. And it's pretty easy planning at this time of the year, because we were pretty well planned for last year, and then we had to pull the plug at the last minute because of the pandemic. So it's not going to be that much work, actually. It's just a matter of some logistics and things like that. So I welcome your input, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Joan, who is one of our 7 Cs cruising folks, you've been a member of 7 Cs for quite a long time, right, Joan?
Yeah, a long time. Long time.
It's okay. That's okay. You're not dating yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Joan. Thanks, Joan.
Hi. Well, the slides that I'm going to go through, I presented this to the Viking explorers in Canary Islands, a virtual seminar, and all of those boats, 9 of them arrived in Grenada last week, and we had SSCA stickers and certificates of achievement. But the important thing was explaining how some of this stuff worked, not the nitty gritties of how you set it up, but so you push a button on something, what happens? Now, I hope this will click through like it's supposed to. Safety means communications. And on our boats, if we're going offshore or even near shore, there's things like search and rescue, the satellite aided tracking systems, EPIRBs, personal locator beacons, and I will go over each of these a little bit more in detail. The automatic information system, radio line of sight VHF, which is very high frequency radio, and DSC, digital select calling, which is really important. And I'm glad Scott is here because he is really plugged into a lot of that. He represents a lot of us in a lot of the government meetings. There's offshore communications devices, several of them, and then there's single sideband radio, your SSB radio, and there's also a new 7 Cs KPK radio station, which I'm not sure anyone's aware of, that is working with marine traffic now. And if you have SSB, that's something to look at. Now, commercial vessels use something called GMDSS. And it's very expensive for them to set it up and run it. And it's integrated. It's a layer of very many integrated older systems into newer systems. But basically, it has a ship security alert system, an anti-piracy communications system. It's on all commercial ships. It's all required. And then these GDMS devices have things such as a Train LT3100 Iridium or MRSAT, and that's of interest to us as cruisers because we now can get that LT3100 terminal if we want to pay for it, and just use it for calls that would let us call directly to an emergency responder, and I'll go over that. We also have NavTech from HF radio to GMDS systems. So explore your options, and remember the Coast Guard's really the expert on this. Now your EPIRB PLBs, that's your Maritime Emergency Positioning Radio Beacon. We all have them, or we should. We have personal land locator beacons, which are PLBs. These devices work by sending two different signals. First of all, you got that 806 megahertz. That is the digital to satellite message that goes from the device up to the satellites. But then they're also sending out a 21.5 megahertz analog homing system. And that's important to know. It's not just this digital thing that's going up to the satellites. These little things are also sending the messages out locally. So a local boat that's set up with the correct equipment, and that's usually the commercial ones, can follow that homing signal for local search and rescue. And that is why your EPIRB should probably stay with you and not be jettisoned while you take your life raft and go somewhere. I'm sure Scott will nod on that one. These systems all send alerts to satellites, then to government mission control centers for verification and distribution. The PLB has less reach and transmission time. It's not as strong a battery. It's a personal unit, not a ship's unit. And also check your batteries and test your units. Just because you bought something 20 years ago and it still looks like it's okay on your boat, you should be testing this as part of your yearly getting ready to cruise. Check the batteries, test the system, make sure your EPIRB's working, because if you need it, that is not the time to learn how to test it. Also, registration is critical, and your contact person on that registration is critical. Now, I'm just going to go over this generally because Scott's really the expert on this. This is how the commercials use the devices, but it works for us too. You have a distress calling utilizing an emergency beacon. That's your EPIRB goes off. That's number one. Number two, you have a search and rescue satellite that recognizes that. Number three, the satellite sends to a local user terminal. Then the local user terminal transmits to Mission Control Center, and then Mission Control organizes and sends out to your rescue coordination centers, which could be anywhere in the world. There are several Mission Control Centers. Main one for us is in the USA. There's a lot of pieces. So how do you make this work? You register your device. The devices have to be registered with your Maritime Mobile Service Identity number. And you register with your government or country of origin. And if you're not careful, it can be dropped if you don't renew it. So let's just be sure that we register our EPIRBs and PLBs and keep that registration current. We had an episode last spring. A boat was lost because he didn't have the second EPIRB registered. It was sending out emergency signals. He carried it with him. But since it wasn't registered, it had been dropped. It took so long for anyone to recognize that it was a distress signal that we never found it. And that was with Glenn Tuttle KPK radio. Make sure if you have a new to you boat or a new boat that you have your own MMSI number in the devices. You re-register with the correct information. The previous owner has to do some steps, and then you can use the MMSI number. But you've got to work on this. It just doesn't happen by clicking your fingers. For VHF and digital selective calling, also requires your MMSI number in its radios and GPS. Now, some of the radios may not allow for errors. So if you mess up, and Scott probably has recognized this, then the radio itself has to be sent into the shop for fixing. I think that's getting solved a little bit better. But at the same time, don't expect to plug in all your devices the second before you leave offshore and have everything working. You may have a whoops. Also, your AIS also requires the same MMSI number. So you get the idea. You're registering, you're going to have a contact number or person, and you better be sure it's not Aunt Sally, who may not even understand you're offshore. You find someone who will be a responsible person when they're contacted to say, yes, they're offshore, because you don't have hours and hours and hours, or days and days and days for someone to try to contact someone to find out if you're really offshore and not in the dump in North Carolina. Your automatic information system, AIS, how does it work? The AIS broadcasts VHF radio signals, that's line of sight, your GPS location, and your MMSI or your identification number to other line of sight vessels with receivers or transceivers. There is also a satellite broadcast to and from commercial ships or some private ships with satellite broadcast, but normally consider it line of sight. You use your VHF antenna. You can share your VHF antenna signal on an antenna with a splitter, but you better have someone know what they're doing when they put that in place, because you can get interference. And the one time you don't want interference is with your AIS messages. AIS has now been added to some EPIRBs, and there's something called the AIS SART, which is also an EPIRB and transmits AIS messages for help. And I like that, because the more people that get your messages, the better it is if you're in trouble. How does this AIS thing work? Well, it's kind of interesting. First of all, you've got ships sending messages via line of sight with their AIS, and they have kind of this, it's commercial or private, everybody's sending messages. And you kind of make this local bubble, line of sight. But you can also have a satellite AIS or cloud. And I'm trying to make this simple because Scott is really more of the expert on this. But anyway, the reason we sometimes see ourselves on something like marine traffic and sometimes don't is that it requires that one of the shore stations or the cloud AIS or a commercial ship transmits our local bubble information somewhere else. For example, this one, this came from the US Coast Guard trying to explain it. Your vessel, the red blob, transmits local line of sight. Everybody transmits that information back and forth to local shore stations and to other vessels. So everybody's sharing this message bubble with everybody else. But it's really nice because you don't necessarily have to be line of sight if you're near shore. And really, AIS started off being line of sight. Now, VHF digital select calling. This is probably one of the best thoughts and designs that's become on the market recently. Almost everybody has a VHF radio. And the US Coast Guard calls this program Rescue 21. And it works by using your MMSI number on your VHF radio to broadcast distress to line of sight vessels. There's a large alarm and ship's name is set automatically. And you can test doing this, but be sure you read the instructions and do the testing correctly. Basically, your VHF radio watches on channel 70 for an acknowledgement. And if the acknowledgement is received, use channel 16 and state emergency. If no acknowledgement is received, the alarm continues to be sent every 4 minutes. All countries use this system for boating safety, some better than others, and quite a few better than the USA. Again, Scott's my expert for that. And then we have the satellite locator beacons. So that's the Spot, the Garmin, the inReach stuff that we all have, those little orange things that you push a button on and track yourself. And there's that little SOS button on it. You set that up on a website, update your settings, your email addresses before departure. Key is before departure. You've got to set all this stuff up. You've got to have the device with your laptop, plug it in, get all the information on the device. These commercial systems use both private and government satellites. And if you have made plans to send an OK message to somebody on a schedule, please do it. There's nothing worse than having a phone call from somebody going, my boat friend didn't check in and I'm worried and they haven't turned on their EPIRB, but where are they? They're in trouble, call the Coast Guard. Well, that may cause a lot of work for a lot of people for no reason. So if you're going to send a check-in message that says you're okay and you schedule it with folks, be sure you do it and keep those batteries plugged in, or the locators. They may look like they're fine, but if you have low batteries, they still may look like they're fine. They have no reach. The footprint of the satellite system you use is critical, either Iridium for some or Global Star for others. That's a thing to check, because if you don't have satellite coverage where your beacon, your little radio system is, it's not going to work. The SOS feature button is a separate feature. It's a commercial sign up, separate sign up fee, and you need to set that up ahead of time too. What's really nice about that, those people are determined. If they get an SOS message, they are going to go like little, they're just like little bulldogs. And they'll work with the US systems, but they also will work with the RCCs in foreign countries, and they can fluently speak in 40 languages. And I've had several conversations and worked with them several times, and most of the commercial satellite locator beacons use the same company, this Geo's company. And again, Spot uses Global Star, Garmin InReach, that's Iridium Go, SkyMate, MRSat. The SOS button, it's supported by Geos. It's a commercial response and rescue service. You can sign up for several levels with them. And Geos complements the US EPIRB messages. It contacts US and foreign government services, SAR, rescue, and you can find them at www.geosafetysolutions.com. But it's a complement. It's not one or all for this stuff. You get everything you can if you're going offshore. Man overboard, there's a lot of that happening now where you get these little devices, but that's just mainly for your boat right there, unless they're set up with an EPIRB of PLB on them. But normally it's just to make sure you're staying on the boat and sets an alarm off if you fall in the water or something happens. Boat US has tested several. The prices range from, $90 to maybe $200 each. And there's a subscription service. I don't use it on the boat. I tether, but other people do. And they're becoming very popular because they're using your smartphones and everything else. You can have a lot of gadgets on your boat. Offshore communications, Iridium Go, SkyMate, Glow. There's new packages and pricings. Check your vendors' plans. It has voice, messaging, and text. Be sure to figure out if you can park it off season, because that's a lot cheaper than paying $60 a month for a service you're not using. If you can park it for $5, that makes a lot of sense. Again, parking is a good idea. You need to compare your satellite footprint. There's two designs. One is bent pipe, and the other is satellite to ground station. Bent pipe is your Global Star. Satellite to ground station is your Iridium, but two different systems. Package prices change daily, so just keep checking. Communications and rescue, you have a network, foreign and US satellites, mission control centers, responding commercial, military, and private vessels. You use your EPIRBs, satellite locators, radios. We have cruiser contacts, boat watch, single sideband radio, cruising station host, boat watch. We're trying everything for safety. And I think that's about it as far as offshore communications. The cell systems are coming along. However, they're not there yet for broadband across the ocean unless you get very expensive satellite systems. And with that, I'm going to stop the share and turn it back over to you, Beth, because that was just kind of a short summation. And there's Scott. I'd love to have your comment on that, because that is my little summation of what's going on here. And you're much more involved with a lot of the GDMSS and those programs.
Scott, you're muted.
No, I'm unmuting my thing. Hello. So who all's here?
We have 8 people.
I only see you two. Okay. Hi. I'm Scott. I've been a member of SSCA since 1985. You can all pause for a second and figure and do the math. And I am happy to handle questions or comments. I do represent recreational boaters on the Coast Guard UDMSS Task Force. I was the co-founder of SSCA's high-frequency radio station, KPK, and I operate a relay for that, KCQ, out of the Capitol Yacht Club in Washington, D.C. when I'm here. I've been involved in marine communications for the better part of 50 years and have both commercial and amateur licenses and do this. I do this for a living. So if there's anything I can do to answer questions or just be here, I'm glad to.
Now, I've let all of the attendees to come in to speak. So there's Tori Salvia.
Hi there, Joan.
Hi, Tori. You're
Hi,
down
Joan.
there in Florida, right? Georgia,
No, I'm
South
in
Carolina.
South Carolina. Yeah, keep working up. I wish I was in Florida today. It's the low 40s and raining here. Where I want to be is 78 degrees, so that's next winter. But I did have a comment on AIS. I did recently install a unit before I came down from the Chesapeake this spring. And I highly recommend it. I didn't have one on my boat before, but having it on the boat, even coming down the ICW, makes communications with, especially with tugs and other large, any vessel, even the big power vessels, much easier. I believe that the skippers are much more willing to contact you if they see you on AIS, they see your vessel name, they see who you are, what you are. So I think it's a good system to have. So I would highly recommend people to install one.
I'm going to second that and share a little bit of example. I mean, I have a Class A AIS on Chardonnay, which is a commercial level. It's a 12-watt unit, which is half a 2-watt unit, and it allows me to change whether I'm anchored or underway or powering. But any AIS transponder that you have is going to make you visible to ships from between 5 and 30 miles away. It's basically a very simple VHF transmitter. The two comments I want to make is you want to have your AIS on a dedicated antenna. I know you can buy these splitters. They're technologically fascinating. But if you take, I want you to take my word for this one here. This is what I do for a living. I'm an expert in electrical. Don't trust those things or anything that's mission critical. The reason is the fact that they rely upon very sophisticated circuitry, and it's just one more failure point between your primary emergency communications device. So put up a second antenna. It'll be worth it. For those who have not yet purchased a AIS unit, look at the company from New Zealand called Vesper, V-E-S-P-E-R. They are an industry leader in every way of service and quality and product design and features. They're absolutely amazing units. And so lastly, an anecdote, sailing up the coast about 200 miles off of Charleston a few years ago, we picked up on radar and on AIS a target, big ship, about 40 miles away. Its CPA to us was approximately 1/8 of a mile. And of course, your AIS transmits to us what their speed is, what their course is. And 5 minutes later, they made a 2-degree course change and changed the CPA from 1/8 of a mile to 5 miles. So they saw us, they saw we were a sailboat, and they made a course change to take our transom by 5 miles rather than our bow by 1/8 of a mile. And they did that when they were 30 miles away. So they are paying attention. And to pick up what you said, if you know the name of the ship you're calling on the radio, they will almost always answer. If you say tugboat on the river, this is, they will A, think you're an idiot, or B, assume you aren't talking to them because they're a push boat. So the ability to call a ship by name or a boat by name, just on channel 13, bridge to bridge, say, hey, just let you know I'm out here. And they'll normally say, I've got you on radar. Thanks for the call. But AIS is worth installing.
Yeah, I was going to just say something briefly to that effect too. So when my husband and I first started cruising, a few years ago, we had an AIS receiver only. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because we sailed to the Caribbean and back with that, and we have a carbon fiber mast with no stays, and we did not realize that people were not seeing us because we were invisible. We couldn't figure out why people are trying to run us down.
Yeah,
And I could easily hail them to give them my position and let them know, but they couldn't see us. I'm like, what is wrong? And we finally figured out it was the fact that we had no radar signature. So the next, when we came home, we purchased, now we have a new device, which is the receiver and transmitter together. So I guess the point I'm making is that if people have that option to just do one or the other, you're really best doing both. Right.
Absolutely. And for those of you with fiberglass boats or boats that have carbon mass, you need not one, but 2 high quality radar reflectors like a blipper in order to get any visibility at all. It's even on my 60-foot boat, I have a blipper that's up 55 feet in the air. It really helps that. Even with my 2 masts and rigging, I'm still a baby dot compared to a ship on the radar.
Hey, Scott, we have
Yes.
Dietmar from Panama Posse on, from, I think, California on the seminar. It'd be interesting, or this webinar, be interesting for Dietmar to tell us if his boats, what his boats are doing with AIS.
Hey, Dietmar, good to see you again. It's Scott.
Hey, Scott, how are you?
I'm good. Good to hear your voice.
Yeah, great to be part of this. Thank you. I'll see if I can turn my camera on, but I guess it's not on. As we're doing mostly coastal runs, the majority of vessels will have emergency communications. I'm personally a little bit of I'm worried about the AIS creeping into the mindsets that it shows everything to everybody, and that's just not the case. So while I love AIS as an aid to navigation, I feel that a lot of people rely on it too much, and particularly because on the West Coast, specifically between California all the way down to Panama, there's not a lot of relay stations. Those who want to say, hey, why can't I see myself on marine traffic? It's because there's simply not enough installation bases where they relay it back. So there's a big discrepancy in AIS uptake on the West Coast, not with regards to our participant vessels, but within the commercial fleets that are perhaps on the West Coast. That are, they only speak Spanish. Many of them do not speak English. So there's not a big uptake for smaller vessels on the West Coast yet.
No, or here, let me be very clear. AIS, unlike radar, AIS is not synoptic, and you certainly need to have a radar before an AIS. Your radar is your primary means of seeing in the dark. AIS Correct. Is a wonderful technology. It's on vessels over 300 tons. It's on vessels carrying more than 49 passengers. But the fishing fleets, the small boats, they don't have it. It's the same is true, by the way, going to the Bahamas. When you're 200 miles offshore, every boat you see will have AIS. When you're within 50 miles of shore, I assume no boat has AIS, and I'm thrilled when they do. So to us, radar is still the primary set. It's your eyeball and a pair of binoculars first, your radar second, your AIS third. And anytime I hear, and I make that as clear as I can, because you are exactly right. The further you go away from the commercial shipping lanes, the less likely you are to see AIS.
We also have a secondary issue this year because we're expanding the route and we're working along the Mosquito Coast, which is Nicaragua and Honduras, where there's piracy at place. We're going to start doing convoys, especially once the trade winds subside. And for that particular purpose, again, we want people to just turn off your AIS. Not that we don't think that the pirates don't have all the technology. We do not know. We create a different relay system and vessel reporting system than using AIS there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, obviously you leave the receive on, but you silence the transmit. Absolutely. The second thing is too, a little hint, when you are doing offshore communication in areas of known piracy, use your HF radio, your high frequency single sideband radios, and not your VHF FM radios. Go down to the 2 megahertz channels, the 4 megahertz channels, and pick a channel. You can be relatively assured the pirates are listening to VHF and CB. They will not be listening to HF. And obviously HF radio works line of sight just fine. It also works, of course, over the horizon by skip, but it also does work on ground wave line of sight. A little bit better range. On 4 megahertz, you're going to have about twice the range you'll get with your VHF.
Yeah, the uptake for our newest vessels, I mean, we're at 184 vessels this season.
Mhm.
I would say only 30% have high frequency radios now installed.
That's terrible. I would never go offshore without a high frequency radio, and I've been doing. And I have more tech on my boat than any boat you've ever seen, and I would never go without an HF radio.
Yeah, copy that, Scott. I'm just telling you the reality of
Well,
our
let's got it.
Right.
We got to teach these people.
Well, Scott, one thing I did this year for first time on the HF radios, because a lot of people have them, just don't know how to use them. I'm using Zoom, and they use their cell phone on Zoom, and I go on their boat virtually
Mhm.
with them with Zoom and help work through their issues and get them trained up or whatever. But a lot of times, just like with MMSI numbers, people get new to them boats. They have an HF radio, and they don't have the license for it, or they
Yep.
don't know how to use it. Or
I do all I can do. I speak at all the boat shows. I speak at all the GAMs. I publish. I write. I've been doing it full time professionally for 30 years. What I try to convince people of, and people on this call won't need it, but maybe you can use this in talking to other newer boaters. The picture that she showed of how EPIRB works is exactly right. There are 4 human beings who are involved before that emergency call goes out. The huge advantage of DSC, whether it's for VHF FM or for HF SSB, is it makes an automatic call to every ship in listening range. With the VHF, that's about 50 miles. With the HF, it's about 1,000 miles. And when they answer it, you're right there talking to them on the phone. There is not a single person in between, not a single consumer device that relies upon a SIM card and a contract and a credit card payment, and assuming someone's going to be there to answer the phone. One of the ones we lost in the Caribbean, the EPIRB message was picked up in South America and never relayed correctly back to this correct station. So in addition to all that wonderful third-party technology, having a VHF FM DSC radio and an HF SSB DSC radio on board is the #1 thing you can do for safety.
Yeah, I concur. I'm with you, Scott. Again, there's a reliance now on gadgets, on pods, and on using trackers in order to communicate. But the many power of a high frequency radio or ham radio is just absolutely unparalleled with other technologies at this stage.
Agreed. And if anybody needs an EPIRB, anybody needs an MMSI reset, just find me at the Spring Boat Show, and I'll do it for you for free. You do have to go back to a dealer, but I'm a dealer for all the major brands.
excellent, Scott. I've unmuted everyone. Everyone can talk that is on this. All 10 participants can talk. Let's see if I got some more that need to be added in. Kate, Scott, you're live. I muted you, Tori. There, you're unmuted.
Right.
We've got Charles Stark, Danny, Mark. Anyone with questions? Feel free to ask Beth, and I'm going to just step back here and let Beth.
Does anybody have any questions about anything?
No, I just got a comment. Considering the emphasis just placed on HF communications, perhaps that's we should put that on the list as a SSCA webinar, either SSU or otherwise. A good detailed one, and then goes into what I would call the SSCA safety video archive. So it's available for people, into the future. And then on top of that, let's take the power of the organization, its numbers and economic power, reach out to a recommended HF manufacturer and see if we can broker a discount for our members. Why not? I mean, that's why we're here.
Yeah. Well, the answer.
Encourage more people to install them, especially if we have a whole thing where, hey, if you buy it, and if we convince you should have it, we've got information all about it, and we have experts that'll help you get it up and running, as opposed to, none of that.
I will tell you, we do have that, in that I provide significant discounts to all SSCA members for all electronic equipment, including HF and VHF radios. And we do have 3 webinars that I've done in the past, and I'm glad to do another one. That I have a significant, for those of you who've been to the GAMs, you know I have about a 2-hour presentation on HF radio installation and use, which I'll be giving at the boat show this year again, if you come at the Cruisers U also. And I think I'm more than happy to take a look and do another discounted offer to members at any time. I mean, I think those who know, I don't recognize all the names here. Beth, should we go around and introduce ourselves and see who's who's here?
Sure. I'm Beth Vandegeijn. I'm the chair of the Annapolis Cruisers Lunch. Scott?
I'm Scott Berg. I'm the past president of SSCA, and I live on a 60-foot ketch named Chardonnay, which is in the background. Hi, boat, where we are right now, and I'm currently in the Washington, D.C. area, desperate to get out and go cruising again as soon as this COVID thing calms down.
Hi there. I'm Tori Salvia. I've been an SSCA member for a couple of years. I was one a while back. I rejoined when I started cruising full time. I've been doing that now for almost a year and a half. Home ports in Annapolis, Maryland. I'm currently in South Carolina. Destination unknown next because of COVID.
Hi, I'll introduce myself. My name's Dietmar Petuchnik. I'm a captain and founder of the Panama Posse and our boats in Chiapas, Mexico. I'm personally currently back in Vegas in our home port. I got my first COVID vaccine last week, and I'm waiting for 3 weeks to get my next in order to make onward travel to the 13 countries a lot easier. For those of you who do have a Coast Guard license, merchant mariners are considered essential workers, so it pushed me to the front of the line. Very excited to be part of the SSCA again, and very happy to get all that really good knowledge and disseminate amongst our vessels.
And I'm Joan Conover, and I'm kind of running the presentation in the background. I'm in charge of the webinars, the Zoom programs, and I guess the Seven Seas University, and Tori's helping me with that. I'm also a member of the board, so if you have anything you want to say, I'm vice president. I can kowtow to Scott because he's a former president, but we're working hard with SSCA to make it relevant to members. Next person.
I have Mark McIntosh in the chat room, and he's trying to say hi, but he can't get his mic to work, so he's saying hello to all.
We have Scott Susik.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm not getting any video. Yeah, I'm with the Gowrie Group here in Annapolis, Maryland, and part of the larger group. You guys know us from Al Golden and IMIS. And I was kind of going to take over Al's role in interfacing with your organization. So this is my first time getting on one of your events, Zoominars. And we'll see where it goes. Maybe I can be helpful on the line, and any insurance questions that might be coming up, especially in these COVID times, what carriers are doing and that type of thing. Anybody feel free to reach out to me at any time.
Thanks, Scott. And we're just so sorry to hear about Al.
Yeah, it was common, but it kind of went really quick in the end. So thank you for that.
No. Welcome.
Scott, how do we reach you through Gowrie?
My email address is just scotts@gowrie.com. And then my you can use either phone lines, any phone line you find online, but my direct line for Gowrie is 410-364-7706. And that automatically goes, if I don't pick it up, goes directly to my cell phone. So I'm always pretty much available around the clock. pretty much around the clock. But the main office in Annapolis is pretty much shut down because of COVID. So that's why everybody has their phones forwarded. So if you're having trouble getting a hold of anybody else at Gowrie and you happen to have my number handy, call me and I'll put you all together if necessary.
Scott, if you, this is Joan, if you send an email to cruising stations at SSCA or to office at SSCA with your contact information, we'll send that, we'll do a blast to our members.
Okay, will do.
And thank you and welcome aboard here.
Well, thank you. I've known about your organization for 20 years.
We see Kate Goodyear. Do you want to say something, Kate?
This is not Kate, but somehow my email got switched. This is Bill Hudson. I'm on Half Moon. Half Moon is on the Heart in Maryland, and we're in Philly. And just as an aside, can't wait to be able to meet in person down there. And I'm certainly open to supporting the Annapolis GAM in any way you need me. Take care.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Bill, can you send me your contact information?
Sure.
So my email, it's pretty simple. It's Beth, B-E-T-H dot Vandegeijn, V-A-N-D-E-G-E-I-J-N at Comcast.net. And I'm also here in Maryland. I'm in just north of Annapolis here. We're home based right now for the winter as well.
We're based in, we have, our house is in Philly, but the boat is in Rock Hall.
Oh, very good. So you're just up the creek from me. So
There you go. Just the creek called the Chesapeake. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that creek. Yeah.
Right. So it's, could you just repeat that? I have Beth Vandegeijn.
Yeah, it's Vandegeijn, V-A-N-D, or Scott's got up, someone's got it posted. Thank you. Good, thanks.
All right.
Super. So we could use help. And Scott,
happy to support.
Thank you, appreciate it. And Scott, I'm from Gowrie. I'll be in touch with you as well, because we usually have Gowrie's presence at the GAM as well.
Great.
So just while we're on the topic of comms, I maybe just query the group while we're online. Historically, with the GAM, I'm sure most of you have attended, we always have, the didactic sessions, which is the lecture series part. And then now we've been introducing or reintroducing hands-on sessions for topics. And I'm wondering what we could offer our attendees in terms of hands-on for radios. What do you, Scott and Joan, what do you guys think?
What I've done in the past, there are 3 different sessions that are hands-on that I have. One of those sessions is based upon how to install and configure and operate an HF radio. I also have one on email and fax over HF for weather fax and gribs, and that we can actually have. What I've done in the past, as you know, is I tend to set up a working radio station outdoors at the GAM.
Right.
Where people come, but I could easily do that inside. We could put a camera there to the overhead and let people actually see what's going on and just run the antenna outside. So I'd be more than happy to do that. And I can do it anything you want with HF, VHF, DSC. If you tell me what you want me to put something together on for a hands-on, I can do it. And I have all the equipment.
Yeah, that'd be good. I just think that we have so many. I truly think at this year's GAM, we're going to have a lot of new boaters.
Okay.
My experience at the Chesapeake this past summer, there's a lot of new people out there, and I'm hoping to somehow, to get them, involved. And I think that it's so essential that people have basic understanding of communications, and it's not everybody's going offshore. I mean,
yeah.
So most of it's just the simple stuff for the Chesapeake Bay, and to try it and practice it. I mean, this is the time to do that while you're on the Chesapeake, where you have access to other people and you can practice. So. Well, if anybody doesn't have anything else, I think we could probably just go ahead and end it for today. I don't have a topic yet decided for next month. At one point, either March or April, I would like to do a little session on Chesapeake Bay cruising grounds. I'm trying to get some more people involved in terms of some of my favorite gunk holes and places to go sail, and maybe put that out there as a luncheon talk for hopefully get some people back. And Tori, when do you expect to be back in the Chesapeake?
I hope to get up there for that meetup in Hampton. The Jones is organizing, and then head up for the summer or part of the summer. I'd like to get to New England eventually. I don't know. We'll have to see with COVID. I'd like to spend some time exploring the Southern Bay. All I've done is pass through it, up and down, up and down, up and down, but not spending very much time actually going up the rivers on both sides and enjoying it.
Yeah, there's some great anchorages down there. Great rivers, great areas to explore. And it's nice and deep, which is nice.
Yeah, I know. I did have one recommendation as a topic, maybe for the GAM again, because I think we had talked before in that other conference Zoom that we had about, quote, cruising 101, unquote. And I think DC power, DC wiring and DC powers could be a really good topic, because it's something that many people can handle, have to handle. And also, I think, even including myself, sometimes poo DC as well. It's not a big deal. It's not going to electrocute you. But I found out just the other week, it can be a big deal. I had a small electrical fire at 2 o'clock in the morning in my V-berth after I went to plug in a phone charger. I had a old DC cigarette lighter outlet. It's been there since I owned the boat that I knew I had to upgrade, and I ignored it. It wasn't wired properly. It did not have an inline fuse, and it was the older type that had an isolator washer on the back, and that's it. And over time, those isolator washers degrade and fall apart. Well, mine finally fell apart and shorted and filled the V-berth with smoke. So dealing with DC, I think, is important. All our boats have it, and especially if you're living on the hook a lot, tracking down problems, understanding it, I think would be a good topic. And it's potential problems that you can have with it. It can be serious if you're not careful.
Yeah. I can easily find someone else besides. I obviously I can't speak on everything, but if you find somebody else to do radio, I can do electrical or vice versa. I have all the presentations made, so because I do them all for the boat show. So if we can find someone else to do radio, or have me do too, whatever you want to do, Beth, you're in charge of this. That's right up my alley.
Good, thank you. Yeah, we got a lot of good resources, and I think that we're going to try and get some good presentations this year. The hands-on sessions were really well received. People really liked that this past year. I do have the sailmaker guy's going to come back and do a hands-on in sail repair, how to do simple sail repair with the stuff you have on board, which is good because I learned that the hard way. Oh yes, off the coast of Puerto Rico, it was fun. But yeah, so anyway, thanks everybody for attending today. I'll post the session topic probably a couple of weeks before the next. And thanks again for Joan for getting us all together with Zoom. I think that's it for the day. So thanks everybody. I think a couple folks are going to stick around because we do have a conversation about GAM planning. So anybody who wants to listen in, please feel free to stay on the line. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the GAM planning. We'll have everybody's attention.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody.
You.
Have one more.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's all we got.
So I'm going to go ahead and get started real quickly. Thanks again for